thank you all for joining us. And we're, of course, going to begin this morning with breaking news from Florida. Hurricane Elsa, tropical storm Elsa, lashing the Gulf Coast overnight, flooding cities along the shore. Landfall is imminent near Cedar Key, a city just off Florida's Big Bend, where the Panhandle and the peninsula meet. The storm is powering northward, dumping as much as 9 inches of rain in parts of the state. Isolated tornadoes are also possible today in the Florida peninsula.
Storm surge concerns stretch from the Florida Panhandle down to the Keys. Hurricane warnings are still in effect north of Tampa Bay in case of the storm gains strength there. Tropical storm watches are in effect in Georgia and the entire South Carolina coastline. Both states there bracing for powerful winds and several inches of rain. Want to go now to NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton, who's joining us now from Clearwater, Florida, in northern Tampa Bay. Antonia, good to see you this morning. Wow, what a morning for you. Talk us through this morning what conditions look like so far and how folks are preparing for the storm ahead.
Good morning, Yasmin. Yeah, right now here in the Clearwater, Tampa Bay area, what we're really dealing with are those strong and powerful winds that you mentioned. And people in the community here have been preparing for this for days. Yesterday and in the days ahead of this, people have waited at times in very long lines or sat in their cars waiting for county officials to give them free sandbags. They could go back, barricade their homes, and prepare for the potential reality of storm surge and flooding waters that could cause property damage. And, you know, this storm was downgraded from a hurricane back to a tropical storm overnight. But these warnings are still in effect as these heavy winds can move this water and still have life-threatening effects. And so, you know, county offices and public spaces are closed in this area until at least the end of the day, Yasmin.
And now, Antonia, we know that Tampa Bay is particularly susceptible to storm surges. So I'm first wondering if you can kind of walk us through why that is, what it looks like there. And then Tropical Storm Elsa passed by right at high tide. I mean, how's it going? How's flooding? What's the city like right now?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So here in the Tampa Bay area, because the water is uniquely shallow, that means that heavy winds can quite aggressively move feet of water at a fast pace, you know, toward people into their homes. And that water can be seriously heavy, move very quickly, and can cause life-threatening effects to people, to their property and surrounding areas. And so that's been what has been of grave concern here. Officials, in fact, asked people to shelter in place ahead of this. And for people who live nearby in low-lying areas, they were asked to actually go live with friends or family members because they were at such risk of flooding. And there were concerns about some of these low-lying areas nearby. And so people have either gone and left some of those properties or they're staying at 2 designated shelters in the area.
Antonia, talk to us about the emergency response, what folks can expect there.
Yeah, so at the statewide level, what it looks like is that Governor DeSantis and the Florida Division of Emergency Management have placed 33 counties under a state of emergency, and that is still in place right now. And that's because of that storm surging, that risk of flooding and potential tornadoes even. And that means that resources have been opened up, and those resources look like food aid, water supplies, and backup generators that have been sent to counties in the area. Yasmin.
All right, Antonia Hilton, thank you so much. Stay safe. Those waves look pretty big behind you. Please stay safe. Thanks for your reporting. Let's now bring in the mayor of Tampa, Florida, Jane Castor. Mayor Castor, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know you must be very busy right now. We hope you and your family are safely getting through this storm. So let's talk through what's happening in your city right now. High tide happened right as the storm passed by Tampa Bay. We know there's also power outages in the area. How's your city responding to this, and how are your constituents doing?
We're doing great here in Tampa. We're very fortunate that we didn't see the storm surge that we expected, and that was 2 to 5 feet. And so we didn't have the associated flooding. So that is a blessing for us. But we are dealing with some of the power outages, limbs down, those types of things. But it's going to be a good day here in Tampa Bay.
Mayor, talk to us about, first and foremost, the shelters where folks can find safety amidst this storm if, in fact, their house is compromised, for instance. And are they choosing to ride this storm out in some of those shelters? How are they faring?
Yes, we do have shelters set up in our county. And we have, we've been through this in Florida a number of times. And so we have all of our procedures in place. to ensure that our residents are safe and that we minimize the damage as much as we can. As the sun rises, we are focused on safety here. So we have asked all of our residents to do the same and to ensure that they're paying attention for any down lines, those types of things, not going through driving through standing water. But we don't expect that we will see any more of our residents in shelters as the sun comes up. As I said, it's going to be a pretty good day here, all things considered, in Tampa. Got a little bit of damage to clean up for, but we're very fortunate.
Yeah, Mayor, tell us a little bit about that cleanup. What is today going to look like? What's your next steps here as the storm does pass through the area?
Well, we have crews that have been in place all night long and responding to any of those down limbs, any of the water, standing water, making sure we barricade all that out. And so they have been dispatched. They're clearing roads. We work, our power company is TECO. We work hand in hand with them. They've actually already brought in extra assistance from other states. It's being staged around the county. So any down power lines, we're making sure we get those back up and power restored very quickly and get our roads cleared, any of the limbs, debris out of the way, and then just responding to any of the calls for service from our residents.
All right. Mayor Jane Castor, thank you so much for joining us.
All good. Thank you, guys. And go Bolts. We're going to win the Tampa Cup tonight. It's going to be a great.
Good luck in the day ahead, Mayor.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Let's now find out where Elsa is at this very moment and where it's headed.
All right, NBC meteorologist Janessa Webb is joining us now with an update. Janessa, talk us through the path of Elsa, right? This thing was a hurricane. Now it's a tropical storm once again. But as of this moment, right, the West Coast still having some hurricane watches in place, some storm watches in place as well.
Yeah, we really got lucky with this storm system. Late last night, overnight hours, it was downgraded because it's just run out of time. We're seeing it quickly make its way to onshore areas, and a northern movement this fast is just running out of steam. So we're seeing a lopsided storm system right now. You can see the eastern side of the storm is producing severe weather, but the western side has just crumbled apart, and that's what's keeping it a tropical storm, but potentially going into an area of low pressure. So really getting lucky with this storm system. Right now, we do have winds of sustained speed of 65 miles per hour. There's that north movement at 14 miles per hour and that potential for it to speed up earlier this morning into mid-afternoon. And that's why we're going to be watching the landfall for later this morning into around the 1 to 2 o'clock hour. So you can see from Cedar Keys to portions of the Panhandle, that's where we're going to be watching that landfall. But this is not over with. This is a long stem system that's going to be stretching into South Georgia, the Mid-Atlantic, the Carolinas will be watching, West Virginia into Washington, New York City, even by Friday. This tropical system will cause winds up to at least 45 miles per hour. And this has always been a big time rain threat. The flooding is going to be an issue. Yes, Tampa really lucked out with the storm surge, but the forward movement of this storm still could produce some storm surge in some areas of southwest Florida. So hurricane warnings, they're still in place for the Tampa area to Cross City. And then now look at this, ladies. We're seeing these tropical watches. They're put in place across coastal areas of the Carolinas into South Georgia. So we'll continue to watch the storm surge for the next few hours, but the focal point of this system will be the widespread flooding. An additional 5 to 8 inches in some spots of Myrtle Beach to Wilmington area, Raleigh, Durham, really on our radar for the next 24 hours as flash flood watches, they continue to spread.
All right, Janessa Webb for us. We're going to be checking back in with you throughout the next hour. Thank you, Janessa, for now. Want to turn to the breaking news out of Surfside, the heartbreaking news, I should say. 109 are still unaccounted for, nearly 2 weeks after the condo collapse. The hope to find any more survivors in the rubble, it is waning. NBC News political reporter Vaughn Hilliard is joining us now from Surfside, Florida. Vaughn, good to see you this morning. Just heartbreaking every time we have a new news conference with the folks that are being found dead amidst that rubble. The search picking up. With the storm now there on the west coast of Florida, how has the search been faring to dig through this debris?
Yeah, Yasmin, you're right here. We should note when there are moments that we could consider blessings. And yesterday, I think, was one of them. The rescue mission was only delayed for about 2 hours yesterday. We had at one time foreseen winds anywhere from 40 to 60 mile per hour. And even early yesterday morning, we were expecting a day of rain and wind. But ultimately, there was just about a 90-minute period in which there was torrential downpour and heavy wind gusts and lightning. But so for that 2 hour, outside of that 2 hour delay, those rescue crews were able to get onto the rubble that you're looking at now. You know, but it's hard to reckon with that graphic of those faces of those individuals you were showing, because unfortunately we know that that graphic and those faces are only going to become larger. 109 individuals still believed to be unaccounted for at this time, and every day there are new images that are added to that very graphic. 8 individuals' bodies recovered just yesterday. We're getting press conferences, one in the morning and one in the evening, and at each one of those is when we get the recovery update. This is tough here for this community to grapple with because there's clearly still weeks to go.
It's so sad, Vaughn. 36 people now confirmed dead. Each one of those, a sister, a brother, a mother, a father, with families so incredibly distraught about this unspeakable tragedy. Tell us about some of these individuals, the first of the funerals beginning just yesterday.
Yeah, these families are trying to, grapple well. The search is continuing with those who have been lucky enough to recover their loved ones. They're planning their funeral services, and just yesterday, there were the first ones, the first victims who have had their services, including a family of 4 just a few blocks from here at St. Joseph Parish. And I want to read you their names. It was Marcus Guara, Anna Guara, and their 2 daughters, Lulu and Emma, 10 and 4 years old. Those 2 daughters, they were put in the same casket there. And this was just a few blocks down the road here from where we were at. This is tough here. As literally the search effort continues, and all around these blocks, including St. Joseph, these streets are still closed, right outside of where those funeral services are being now held.
That is so sad, Vaughn. Let's talk about the Surfside mayor, Burkett. At the press conference yesterday morning, talking about the safety concerns about Champlain Towers North. We have been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. Are folks concerned about this, and are they addressing some of those concerns? What's going to happen here?
Yeah, the Surfside mayor outlining serious concerns with with that particular building here, noting that it was developed at the exact same time as Champlain Tower that collapsed, and that they see some infrastructure issues with it here. There are people that are currently living in that building here, but that is where you see across Miami concern, because we still do not know and will not know for likely a long time exactly what the cause of this building collapse here was, but that is forcing everybody to take a good hard look at the infrastructure of their existing buildings, especially here around the Surfside area.
Vaughn Hilliard for us. Thank you so much, Vaughn.
President Biden is hoping to ramp up COVID vaccinations after the U.S. missed his July 4th goal of getting 70% of adults at least one dose of the shot. The president warning the fight is not over as the Delta variant spreads.
Right now, as I speak to you, millions of Americans are still unvaccinated and unprotected. And because of that, their communities are at risk, their friends are at risk, the people that they care about are at risk. This is an even bigger concern because of the Delta variant.
NBC News Now correspondent Isa Gutierrez is following the latest on the pandemic this morning. Isa, good morning. Always great to have you. So let's talk through what this latest plan from the White House is to expand vaccinations, because we've seen so many iterations of this, both on the federal level and local level, bringing the shot where people are, like transportation hubs, things like that. So what's the latest plan here to get people who are maybe on the fence about the shot to do it?
Good morning, Savannah. Yeah, President Biden this week is calling on more employers to set up vaccination sites at their workplaces, to also give employees time off to get their shots. That's still a concern for many. He also spoke about the fact that they're really pushing to try and get more primary care doctors to get the vaccine, to be able to offer them in their offices, and also to get more providers who serve those who are 12 to 18 years old the shots as well, so that younger people can get vaccinated. Take a listen.
Now we need to go to community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood, and oftentimes door to door, literally knocking on doors to get help to the remaining people protected from the virus. Look, equity, equality, it remains at the heart of our responsibility of ensuring the communities that are the hardest hit by the virus have the information and the access to get vaccinated.
The vaccination rate here in the U.S. has fallen relatively flat, and the president said that by the end of the week this week, by Friday, 160 million Americans will have been vaccinated. That's not quite half of the total population, the eligible population, and definitely falling short from that 70% goal that he wanted to get to by the holiday. Savannah?
Yeah, we neared it, 67%, but we're not there yet. All right, Issa, so now let's talk about some concerning news. As we're seeing Delta variant spread, that we're seeing these surges. More than 125 people tested positive for COVID after attending a church camp in Texas. Do we know what happened there, what the vaccination status was of those people, any of the guidelines that were in place there? What do we know about this?
Yeah, Savannah. So the lead pastor at this church in Galveston, Texas, posted on the church website saying that over 125 campers and adults had tested positive for COVID-19. He also said that additionally, hundreds more were exposed to COVID-19 at the camp, and hundreds of others were likely exposed when infected people returned home from camp. Now, the local health department said that they were notified of 57 of these cases tied to the camp, 47 of them in youth 12 and adults 12 and older, 10 of them in youth younger than 12, and 6 of those confirmed cases were breakthrough cases, so in people who were fully vaccinated. The county health department also said that 3 of the cases came back or tested positive for the more contagious Delta variant. We know that in Galveston County, Texas, about 52% of the eligible population is vaccinated at this point. Savannah?
All right, Issa, we do have some good COVID news this morning, though, that in New Jersey, for the first time since this whole thing started, they've reported 0 COVID deaths, something important to keep in mind. Issa, thank you so much.
All right, the president is coming under pressure to act after Russian-speaking hackers REvil claim responsibility for last week's ransomware attack on software company Castor. Researchers saying the attack spread to at least 200 other organizations. The group now demanding $70 million in Bitcoin to unlock the company's data. Want to bring in NBC News national security correspondent Ken Delaney joining us now. Ken, great to see you this morning. Thanks for joining us on this, my friend. I want to take a step back for a moment. Let's first remind folks, this is the largest, it seems, or one of the largest ransomware attacks in history. Remind us what happened here and the Biden administration's response.
Yeah, that's right. It's one of the largest by volume. It doesn't appear to have had a huge impact in the United States. But, for example, in Sweden, they had to close down their largest grocery chain, 800 stores over the weekend because their payment systems were locked up. This hacking group called REvil is a Russian-speaking group based in Russia that appears to operate with impunity as long as it only attacks the West. It doesn't attack Russian targets. And this was a particularly devious attack by this group because it was a so-called supply chain attack. They first got into an IT company that transferred the malware to other IT companies that serve thousands and thousands of businesses worldwide. And so what's significant about this is it came 3 weeks after President Biden warned Russian President Vladimir Putin that he needed to start cracking down on these criminal hackers in his country, and it's raising questions about whether that warning meant anything at all. Biden initially didn't talk about this. It was a very low-key response by the administration. Yesterday, they responded and said they're working on it, but they still have not attributed it to this group that came from Russia. They're still hedging on that. So a lot is up in the air on this, guys.
Well, let me ask you, what incentive does Russian President Vladimir Putin have in cracking down on any of these hackers inside of Russia, in spite of the threats that he got from Joe Biden?
That is a great question. We have not given him one, many experts say, because the United States has not raised the cost to Vladimir Putin of this behavior over the last 10 years. They've been getting away with it. And just over the weekend, the Kremlin put out a national security strategy that said that it would engage in asymmetric conflict against the West because it believes the West is trying to undermine Russia. That's the United States mainly. And so you're right. He has every incentive to continue these attacks until the Biden administration does something that makes it cost him. And those things could include more sanctions, could include military cyber attacks on this hacking group itself, or some other way to punish the Putin regime. Right now, Biden is meeting with top officials across the government today to talk about sort of how to play defense against ransomware. But most experts say until you start playing offense, this threat is not going to diminish.
All right, so meeting at the White House over this Our Evil claiming responsibility. What's the White House reaction to that?
So what they're saying is, first of all, we're not 100% sure that this was Our Evil based in Russia. They're hedging on that because Our Evil is a ransomware for service business and they sell their product elsewhere. But they're also saying that they're sort of noting that this attack was not against critical infrastructure. And that's what Biden really emphasized to Putin, that they needed to stop attacking critical infrastructure in the United States. It appears to a lot of experts that the Biden administration is sort of tying itself in knots to try to not make a big deal out of this. Now, they may be levying a harder warning in private. But so far in public, they haven't said very much.
And I think the major question is, what are they going to do to be prepared for the next time as more of these ransomware attacks continue to happen? Ken Delaney, my friend, great to see you this morning. Thanks so much.
Breaking news out of Haiti this morning. The country's prime minister confirms that President Jovenel Moise was killed during an attack on his house this morning. The Haitian First Lady was injured in the attack and is receiving medical attention, but her condition was not immediately clear. President Moise had been the subject of protests in recent months after the opposition said his term expired in February and the leader refused to step down. Now let's get a check on your morning news now weather. What else is going on across the country besides Elsa? Hey, Janessa.
Hi, ladies. Hey, those storms were pretty powerful last night. If you were across Jersey, New York City, heard the skies roaring. I mean, we have another day of severe weather, and it's going to extend down to the mid-Atlantic as well. That's why flash flood watches, they are going to be heightened this afternoon. 13 million people will be impacted. And yes, we are continuing to see this summer heat, very dangerous conditions. They're stretching from Philadelphia all the way into Boston today. 20 million people impacted by heat advisories and warnings. So it's hot and muggy, and it's another day of this before the cold front starts to make its way through. The feel-like temperature on your skin today, New York City, 100 degrees. We're above 100 heat index for Dover. Man, that just hurts your feelings looking at that. And then tomorrow, a little bit of a relief. OK, I'm not a hot weather fan, but tomorrow we're still in the upper 90s. And by this weekend, we're back to normal. Ladies.
Janessa, I do know that about you.
Here's the summation. Stay safe. Stay hydrated.
Stay indoors.
Maybe have a midday cocktail. What? Anyway.
What?
Thank you, Janessa. We'll talk to you again soon.
An Aperol Spritz.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.